It's a holiday, come on, celebrate and rejoice. It's Kwanzaa, spreading unity in our families and communities. It's a legacy, makes us so strong. Yeah, yeah. So let us come together to say love. It is Kwanzaa. It's time to celebrate. If you so summer on this day, moja, Chakalia, Chima, Ujama, Iya, Uba, Imani. That is what we need. We gather around today to reflect upon our past. We've come so far, remembering all of those who came before us. From Rosa to Malcolm to Dr. King Turner, yeah. From DuBois to Yasha Shatiwa, we honor you on Kwanzaa. It is Kwanzaa. It is Kwanzaa, yeah. It's time to celebrate. On this day, we got Moja, Moja, Moja Chakalia, Ujama, Jama, Uba, that is what we need. As we reflect on what it means for love, what it means to love. We got that for the blood and black for us. In the green for the land, yes for the land. It is Kwanzaa. Oh, oh, oh. It is Kwanzaa. It is Kwanzaa. Yeah. It's time to celebrate. On this
Thanks to everyone joining this broadcast. Welcome to the African Portal Radio International. We're coming to you live from Pretoria here in South Africa. Those of you connected to this broadcast, please share, let it go viral. Baba Buntu is on the African Portal live and direct on the African Portal Radio TV International. It's going to be a beautiful time on this program this hour. Firstly, let me welcome everyone to this program. Ashe Moloye Dumela, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bonjour, Barisa, all over Africa, we greet, we salute, and we welcome everyone to this broadcast this hour as people are preparing to enter into time of celebration. We also join all our friends, family, and all the relatives all over the world to welcome to the season of celebration as we get ready for the time, such time that people get together, family gets together. Remember, Saturday, Kwanzaa is on again. And that is what we are going to be talking about. What is Kwanzaa? Why Kwanzaa? What is it all about? What is the connection of it to the African soil? And those are the things we will be talking about. Firstly, let me let you know that the person on the program this hour is a scholar, is a somebody that I respect so much, is somebody when Yoruba want to call people like him, Yoruba will say Obunobongo, Tindato, Leno, Igbe. Those are the scholars, the professionals. It's professionals in this field and is very, very talented. And also, it's not only talented, he have passion for Africa. He have passion for things that have to do with promotion of African ideology and African culture. Let me use this time to welcome the extraordinary, the one of the genius, the one of the great leader, the community leader, and the one of the people that we respect so much in African soil. It's a great pleasure to have Dr. Baba Buntu on the African Portal. Welcome, sir, and how are you today, sir?
Thank you so much. It is with great humbleness that I greet everyone who's tuning into the African portal. Thank you so much, Mr. Dare, for opening up this channel and for spreading the message of Africa such broadly and widely. It's a great honor for me to be here. I'm very, very, very happy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. It is our pleasure to have you in the board. You are not a kind of person that's easy to get because of your schedule and because of the time constraint. You're always very busy. But for you to give us time to be on this broadcast this hour, it means a lot to me and it means a lot to the African team. We just want to use this time to say thank you very much for honoring our invitation. We're going to be having a conversation around the Kwanzaa, the Africa celebration, the African harvest, and the festivals. Those are the things that a lot of people don't have a lot of understanding about. Those are the things that we'll be looking at and we'll be thinking about how what is the advantage of it and what other people need to know about it. But firstly, before I put you on the spotlight, I know you mentioned your name. Let me use this time to introduce you properly. Where you're from, who you are, and the position you hold in the society.
Okay. Thank you very much. So my full name is Dr. Baba Amani Oluvabjo Buntu. I hail from an island in the Caribbean called Anguilla. And as you would know, the reasons why there are Black people in the Caribbean is for the very tragic kidnapping that Westerners did to Africa, where they stole people and placed them in different parts of the world, amongst them also the Caribbean. And obviously, originally we came from many different places of the continent, so I have been able to trace myself back to Yoruba land, which I've had the blessing of visiting a couple of times, and I hope to go again. But I now live in South Africa. I am executive director of a company that I run with my wife and our sons and daughters, which is called Ebukosini Solutions. And Ebukosini means the royal house. So we focus a lot on African knowledge, African tools, African solutions in today's society, whether it's family problems, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's Black economic empowerment, or whether it's cultural illiteracy. Because as you made a reference to, many of us are really in need to understand our culture. We live in a time where many of us have been brought up to believe our culture is wrong, it's demonic, it's not something we should be very proud of. So we want to put that at the forefront of all activities that we do.
Thank you very much, sir. I like what you say. I just want us to have some discussion on a bit before we go into the business of the day. Let me just divert a bit. You said you trace your origin back to Africa and you trace it back to the Yoruba land. Can you take us a bit to the journey? Because some people will say, no, how can somebody trace his step back? How possible is that? A lot of people are there in Caribbean, a lot of people are there in North American, a lot of people are there all over the world, but they know that they connect with Africa. But for them to trace themselves back to the roots is very difficult for them. Probably your whole story will help somebody out there. I would like you to just give us a kind of background, how it works, and how do you manage to achieve that?
Right. So there are different ways of doing it. Obviously, there are some who trace the lineage through the DNA samples. I have not done that. I have gone a spiritual way and been inducted into Yoruba through elders who identified me and found me and read me. And you know, within the spiritual script of Africa, there are ways to scan a body for its origin, where we come from, what we represent. And some of our elders have the gift to do that. So that was my entry point. And maybe it's important to also say that Yoruba culture lives very strongly in the Caribbean. The songs, the chants, the drumming, the rhythm, the philosophical content of Yoruba values is very strong in the Caribbean. So it was kind of easier for me, I guess, to kind of navigate and get the right people to help to scan and to interpret who I was and where I was from.
Hmm. Thank you very much. A lot of people that will be joining us, probably you are in Caribbean, you are in North America, no matter where you are under the sea, if you are actually struggling with that, Baba Buntu is there. I'm going to put his number as well on the space for you to get connected to him in case you want any question on that or you want any clarity on that. His number will be on the line that you can also hook up with him. Thank you very much, everyone joining us. Sir, let me quickly divert a bit again to another aspect. You mentioned Ebukusisni solution, where you are the CEO and you run it with your spiritual son and daughter and with your wife. What can you please expatiate that a bit? A lot of people will like to know what you do and what is the benefit for it for the people in the community.
Okay. So our journey starts with a realization, and we could even see it started with ourselves as individuals, feeling very lost in this world, understanding that there was something to be said about being African, but the story is so confusing. Is it a proud story? Is it a prodigy? Is it a story of greatness? Is it a story of shame? And as I got introduced to African books in my youth, I started to read very, very, very decidedly, wanting to really understand more about African history. What is the history of our people? Why are we so marked in this world? Why are there so many people who have such huge problems with us? Why has this continent been invaded and keeps being invaded so many times? Why is everybody coming for us? And why are there these issues of race? Why are there issues of discrimination purely based on black skin? These are some of the questions that led me to try to understand more what this has done to us as a people. And I have found that many of us are very marked by this psychologically, spiritually, even physically. Some of us even have diseases and sicknesses and weaknesses because of what history has done to us. So for me, it has been very important to be active in projects and processes that helps to heal and empower African people. So that's what I've been doing for more than 30 years. And in 2002, we decided to start Ebukusini Solutions here in South Africa. And it's run as a community-based organization, which means that our main leaders are people in the communities. Those are the people we serve. Those are the people who give us critique. Those are the people who say whether we are making sense or not. We do workshops, we do trainings, we introduce young and old to African literature, but not just for the sake of reading. I mean, reading is good. It's good for everybody to read. And it's even very good for everyone to read African history. But we read for a purpose. My understanding of the world we live in right now is that we are at war. Africa is being torn apart every single day. And the only people who don't seem to be very worried about it is us. So I think it is, I have a deep urge for us as African people to reclaim our continent and I'm not very interested in nationality right now. I'm not very interested in talking about one nation or one. These are nations we never made. These are nations that were forced on us. These are boundaries that we never asked for. They were forced on us. It was done in a very oppressive way. So I'm not saying people should not take any pride in their nationality, but for me, it's quite irrelevant right now. What we need to understand is that because it's not all of us who will put this as our main priority, but some of us have to take a lead to make it our priority to free Africa in our mind, in our soul, in our bodies, and even in the physical sense. So it's a response to the warfare that we can see around us, and urge to really stand up as African people in a practical way, not just talk about freedom, not just talk about what should be, what shouldn't be, but actually create it within the family, within where we live, within the communities, everywhere we are. We have so much power. And once we realize that, we also become much more enthusiastic about what we can do and how we can do it.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Before the end of the program, we are going to put the contact and the website that people can get connected to you as well. We are going to put it on the spotlight. You have a lot of program you are running, I mean, in your company as well that have helped a lot of people in the community. Most especially the time that I have time to engage with you when you tell me about the Men on the Mountain. It's one of the program that you are running. Can you please expatiate that, because we live in an environment where there's a lot of problem, especially the gender inequality and then the gender violence. I mean, the domestic problem in our homes and stuff like that. What can we do to this as Africa in an Afrocentric way? Can we find a permanent to this? Because we look at the government is attending to it. It seems like the problem is not really solved. It's like the problem keep on increasing daily. What are you doing to address this?
Thank you very much, sir. So for us, it starts with a very deep understanding that very central to African culture is the African family. The family unit is a power unit, not just one for convenience or for pleasure, but it's really a power unit for economic and wealth creation as well. Hence, we've had so many different family constellations in Africa as well. So we focus a lot on how to harmonize the African family, because I think it's not a secret right now that our families are not always the most harmonized. They are not the most peaceful families at many times. So we struggle as African men and African women to work together. And we come from a power script where we have been told by Europeans and Arabs that for power to work, one must be on top and one must be under. Now, that's a slave and master narrative that we must immediately stop using at all. It destroys us. We are not supposed to be over and under. That's not. We're supposed to have a form of equilibrium and equality, just as the feminine qualities are extremely important in both leadership, in royalty, in production, in economy. The masculine principle is also very important in the same domains. But we have gotten so lost because we've been so colonized. Think about it. We go to universities and we get fancy degrees, and we impress our families with papers and diplomas. But what have we really learned? We have learned to become Western. We have learned to become Arab. We have not learned to become African. And there are very few places in this world that it really benefits you, that you are deeply anchored in African values. When you think about job opportunities, money, all the things that we seem to really, really want a lot of. None of those places are you being asked. So do you know your clan name? Do you know your ancestry? Can you tell us which 10 forefathers do you come from? That's never a question. But we know a lot about things that are actually not from us. And I feel that when we then come into family and start families, and we work with a lot of young people who are starting families, and we see many young people going wrong. We see many young people being at the throat of each other, really hating each other, really having so much turmoil and violence in the home. And a lot of that is because we have become a people that we were not supposed to be. So when you mention Men on the Mountain, we do have a number of programs within Ebukusini. We have programs for women, we have program for men, program for students. So let me just explain a little bit about the program for men, which is called Shabaka. And Shabaka is one of the great black pharaohs about 700 BC who helped to reunite Kemet, or ancient Egypt, at the time when it was really low and in turmoil. And what we do, we go to communities. We've even run this program in Nigeria. And we hope to be able to do it again, where we bring, well, men of all ages, but it often happens that young men respond more than older men, and we bring them into basically just to have conversations, but not just to talk, but to actually go deeper into yourself and find out, who are you? What has happened in your lifespan? How were you raised? What are the values you now stand for? Do you think those are the values you want to pass down? Do you feel that as an African man, you really know where you're supposed to go? And we find that a lot of us as African men, we have many insecurities. But because of the society we live in, we're not supposed to admit that we're insecure. So many of us try to pretend that we know everything. We don't want to ask any question. And then what happened is that some of us, I'm not saying all of us, some of us became dangerous to ourselves. You know that substance abuse is an issue in many African communities. And that's when we start to hate ourselves. We can't deal with life, and we start to do things to ourselves that is actually deteriorating our life quality. But some of us also start to do other things to our children, to our wives, to our families. We end up in fights. We end up in doing demeaning things to those that we say that we love. So we want as African men to take ownership of that and stop. And that doesn't mean that all African men are a problem and no African women have problems. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that as African men, can we take responsibility for us? Can we start a conversation about what kind of African men does Africa need right now? And actually, the basic question we ask is, am I the best African man that I can be? And if not, why am I not? And when I find out why I'm not the best African man I could be, what am I prepared to do to actually become that man? So it's a call to men to really stand up and be the absolutely best that we can be.
Thank you very much. I like that. I like that. And I believe a lot of people listening to me right now, I'm expecting a lot of people to join the conversation. Please kindly help me tell people around you there to also share those programs to connect this African program. And I expect all the African citizens as well to join this broadcast so that we can do it together. Before we go into the business of today, let me just quickly take you back to the line of history. As a child, an African child, grew up in another soil that is not African soil. How can you explain it? What are the experiences that you have when you are growing up in where you are born? And as well, you talk about the reading books and stuff like that. You are kind of person that I've seen that you like books and you like reading as well. Is this being imparted to you when you are growing up from your environment, or it's only when you get to Africa that you discover that reading is actually good? And what are the characteristics of the of being a black person, let me use that word, in another continent? Because it's a kind of thing that I have never been there, I've never experienced this, I don't know how it is, but you've been there. You see in and out, you see what happened in Africa, and at the same time, you see what happened in Caribbean. Can you please give us a kind of explanation on that, sir?
Yes. I think my awakening process started when I got to Europe, actually, where I met a lot of Africans from different countries on the continent, and lived and operated in a way where it was very fluid and understandable that people were from different countries on the continent and in the Caribbean, and nobody really made an issue out of where you were from. We were seeing each other as the same people, and we did the same things. We had similar interests. Some of us were involved in organizations, some of us were involved in demonstrations against racism, things like that. So I think it was meeting with so many different Africans from both the diaspora and the continent made me really realize that we are so much the same. Even if we may speak different languages, even if we may culturally differ certain ways, there's so much that we have in common. And it really made me appreciate who we are as African people, how an incredible people we are, how beautiful we are, how an incredible history we have. And I could no longer hold myself. I now needed to really read and understand the commonalities in our history. I wanted to read about ancient Egypt. I wanted to read about West Africa, East Africa, Central Africa. I wanted to understand everything about Africa. And I think I wasn't necessarily inspired to do this so much at home, at least not directly. But I think within the Caribbean culture, there is a very strong pronouncement of African values and African music and African rhythms, even if not everyone knows where exactly this rhythm is from, or where this name is from, or why this person is called such and such. So I think the opening up into the African universe, so to speak, was not a very difficult door to open. I think what I do somehow appreciate. I'm not sure if I hadn't lived in Europe, I'm not sure if I would have understood how vicious Eurocentricity is. Because I've seen this with many of my brothers who have not been to the West, and often feel that. But now I think we are exaggerating. We shouldn't talk so much bad about European people. I don't think we should blame everybody. For me, it's not about blaming, but it's talking about the atrocities that have been done to us and that keep being done to us. I think I wouldn't have understood the finesse in it, how deeply entrenched it is in literature, in science, in mathematics, in history, in written word text, everywhere, if I hadn't lived for some time in Europe. So I have kind of decided that I appreciate that experience, even if it's far from a beautiful experience.
Thank you very much. I like that. So that actually means that it's because of your journey. I mean, during your journey is when you realize how important it is that we need to read and how important it is that we need to stand for ourselves. Because when you realize the damage that have been done to the black race, damage that have been done to this continent, beautiful continent, Africa, that is when you say, no, it's time for me to liberate my people. And I used to tell people the best liberation so far is the mental liberation. If you can liberate mentally, then the problem is solved. But most of the liberation that the people are calling for today, and most of the liberation people are portraying today, is just a liberation of food. You just give them food to eat, but still you still putting them in prison in their thinking, in their brain, in their mind. You still locking them up, and those are the things that we need to stop and try to find a balance to. It's time to liberate ourselves mentally, most especially to know who we are and appreciate who we are and celebrate who we are and unite ourselves, and let's see the common goal of why God put us together and why God in this kind of skin. Let's appreciate that and let's embrace ourselves. Thank you very much, sir. That is just by the way. That is not where we are going to actually for today. That is going to be for another time. We're gonna continue on that. Let's quickly go to the business of the day, which is talking about the African Harvest Festival. What is African Harvest Festival means, and why are we having that in time such as this?
Yes. So there are many ways of introducing Kwanzaa, but I would like to start from the continental part because that's where it really originates and that's where it starts. I'm saying it this way, and people will understand a little bit later, because sometimes Kwanzaa is introduced as a diaspora thing only. But let me start with the continent. So let's remember that Africa has since time immemorial been an agricultural society. So, with our spirituality and with our understanding of land and crops and how significant it is to pay homage to the land, to what we have been given to eat, for when our crops can be harvested and being able to prepare for a new season and feed our people. The understanding has always been that it's important to give thanks for the crops that we are harvesting from the soil. So hence, there are a number of harvest festivals around the continent. Some have started 100 years ago, some have started 1,000 years ago. That many have, and they are called by different names. I was just looking up a few of them that we know in Nigeria. For instance, there's Argungu, there's the Benin Festival, there's the Yam Festival, there's the Ikeji Festival in Imo State, there's the Sharo or Shadi Festival, which is celebrated by Fulani men. And there's the Ikore family festival, which is the Yoruba Harvest Festival. These are examples of festivals where people would pay homage and give thanks for the crops that have been given so that we can feed the nation and that we can now prepare ourselves for a new season of life. So that's one part of it. The other part, in 1966 to be specific, an African American scholar called Dr. Maulana Karenga, he and a team of African scholars, they were contemplating what would people in the diaspora be able to claim and to relate to as a celebration or as a way to really celebrate the unity, even if they didn't know exactly which part they would have come from originally. And then they did research in different parts of Africa, amongst them also here in South Africa, where there are a number of festivals. Some are called Int'L, some are called Umkosi, some are called Dikafela, some are called Tibura. So there's a number of festivals in this part of the continent as well. And they found some of them and they said, but this is celebrated quite similarly. Can we adopt this? Like, can we create out of this a festival that specifically speaks to those of us who may not be able to anchor ourselves, particularly in one part of the continent, but still have this love for the continent, still have this love for Pan-African progress? And that's the history of Kwanzaa as we know it now. So that festival has grown into a festival where millions and millions of people, firstly across the diaspora, but also increasingly on the continent, have kind of embraced. And for me, the interest is because I know some questions will come. Some people will say, why should we embrace the way of celebrating a festival if it was more or less conceptualized in the diaspora? I think there's two things to say to that. First of all, we're not necessarily emulating or copying exactly how it's celebrated in America. But what is beautiful about, or in other parts of the diaspora, but what is beautiful about how Kwanzaa was conceptualized in the diaspora is that it really it talks to the situation we are in right now. Because right now, maybe you and me, Ulushan, we could live in a community where we have food, but we know very well that our neighbors don't have food. We know very well that there's not a school in the next village. We also know very well that there's violence and war, and there's so many things happening in our nations, and we need festivals that are not just pure celebrations, but also speak to the political situations we are in. And that's what I feel that Kwanzaa does. Kwanzaa means the first fruit, by the way, as you pointed out. And I think beyond it celebrates the agricultural science of Africa, but it also goes over and beyond that to say that yes, we are an agricultural nation, but in many places of our continent, we don't even own our soil. We are not even the ones who are harvesting and benefit from the food, the seeds that are being put in our soil. It's being sent overseas. Other people benefit from what this rich, great African soil is supposed to produce in many places of the continent. So it celebrates that, but it also brings into equation the fact that we are a people who are trying to unite. We are a people who try to maintain peace within our continent. We are a people who are sick and tired of invasions, of foreign companies taking over our economies, and we cannot just sit and talk and feel sad about it. We need to use also celebratory vibrations to bring ourselves to that front line and say, you know what? We are African people. We are strong. We will stay together. We will celebrate each other. We will bring up great daughters and sons. We will make sure that in our homes, our children know their African history. We will make sure they speak their African language. We will make sure that they go out there and make sense in the African world. So for me, that's really the basis of Kwanzaa. So it's celebration, but it's also a political consciousness and awareness that I'm part of a people that if we don't do something about it, we are being completely pushed off our center. We are pushed into the margins, and that's not where we're going to be. We need to come back to the center.
Thank you very much, sir. I like that, and that's a very clear explanation. So now this Kwanzaa thing, when is it? I mean, when is the time to? I mean, for celebration and how the celebration goes? What the people needs to know is, I remember 2014. I happened to be one of the organizer. I mean, one of the the team that made 2014 happen. And it's a very, very interesting time that people have to engage, dance, and a lot of family people bring food and people can share things together and stuff like that. But a lot of people doesn't aware it, and this broadcast is one of the way to elaborate, to let people know about it and to get more people involved about it. When is this celebration and how is it celebrated?
Okay, so Kwanzaa involves seven days of marking 7 different principles. And it starts on the 26th of December and it goes until the 1st of January. The dates are the significance of the date is more or less that it's convenient dates for most people. They are free from work. They are able to do something within their community. Now, Kwanzaa actually starts with an invitation to celebrate and to mark this harvest ritual within your home. But as you know, and as you have been part of, and which we really appreciated, we as Ebukosini Solutions, we normally celebrate the first day as a community event. We over the years, we started with 25 people, and over the years we have gotten to about 500 people for the opening ceremony. Unfortunately, this year, because of COVID and because of health complications, we had to withdraw our plans. We had plans, we had a venue booked, but we couldn't go ahead. So this year we're going to do it virtually. So on the 26th at 1:30 on the Ebukosini Solutions Facebook page, we are going to broadcast a Kwanzaa opening ceremony. And through that, we will also want to encourage people to celebrate this and use the principles of Kwanzaa within their own home. I think the principles of Kwanzaa are very, very beautiful. They start with unity, they go to self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, creativity, faith, and purpose. And these are principles, these are 7 principles. So one principle is kind of highlighted every single day. And there's some doing this. So we use candles, we light a candle for each day. We use crops and fruits and vegetables as symbols of the harvest. It's a child-centered festival, so children must be at the front. And what is very beautiful, brother, you know, I don't have much time for Christmas, especially in the way that it's normally celebrated with Santa Claus and a whole lot of nonsense that has nothing to do with us. And I think it's very destructive how African children are growing up thinking that this is part of their lives and they're excited. And, you know, they have no choice because they go to school, they start to sing songs, they start to draw drawings, and they become excited because what else is there to do? What is really beautiful with the Kwanzaa journey, because we are now at our 19th year of celebrating it here in South Africa, is that children are looking so much forward to Kwanzaa. And they're looking forward to something African. They're looking forward to something Black. They're looking forward to something that has to do with us, where their own faces actually are the illustrations and the motives and the representation. And that's, if you think about it, there's hardly anything that children can do that in many of our homes. So for me, that is very significant, both children and adults.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's quickly look at it. There is a celebration we normally have in February, if I'm not mistakenly, which is called African Day. But why do we Kwanzaa in December? Why do we put it on the same time when people are having, I mean, there's a celebration here and there? Why not doing in June or in other months? Is it specifically chosen by the organizer that it must be in December? What exactly is the history said about it?
Okay, so sorry. Part of the understanding of Kwanzaa is that it is an agricultural festival. So it's supposed to happen at the end of the rainy season, and when the crops are being gathered. In parts of Africa, the celebration is starting when the crops are being begun to gather. In other places, they celebrate after the harvest have been gathered. So it varies a little bit from place to place. And obviously, depending on where you live, you could not necessarily say that 26th of December is the marker of the end of the rainy season and the marker of when the crops are being harvested. So it differs a bit from place to place. And I think I want to say this as well. We are not saying we should take away the Ikore festival, the Ikeji festival, the Yam festival. No. That's not what it is. But Kwanzaa becomes as a nice addition where we, regardless of language, regardless of which part of the continent we come from, regardless of which language we speak, we can come together on the same date and we can celebrate being African. We can celebrate what we want to achieve as African people going forward. And what you mentioned about the February date, I think you know, so sometimes we call February Black History Month, which to some extent is also offensive because February is the shortest month. Why should it be the shortest month that we call Black History Month or African History Month? And secondly, how can we compress the huge and incredible African history into 1 month? That doesn't even make sense. I think that every single month must be African History Month, and I think so the fact that there is a history month in February doesn't mean that that should be there, then we are done, there's nothing else we should do. It's more to kind of motivate us to do more, to talk about our history, to teach our history, to make sure that we teach history around the year. And for me, the greater value of Kwanzaa for me lies in that too. That as a parent, for instance, understanding how to instill the principles of Kwanzaa in my children, it's not something that I can do for 7 days in December. It's something that I do on a daily basis throughout the year. And Kwanzaa then becomes kind of the reference point. The song of Kwanzaa becomes the reference point. The imagery and the memories from Kwanzaa becomes the things that help you to remember, oh, by the way, as African people, this is what we want to do. This is how I should treat my friend. This is what I should do for my wife. Like it gives you an inspiration to do much better as an African man, woman, and child.
Thank you very much, sir. I like the way you just put it together. Let me take this time to let our listeners know that this is the African Portal Radio TV International. We're coming to you live from here in Victoria, Waterkloof in South Africa. Join the conversation. Let's do it together. Let's get the ball rolling. As well, you can share this program. If you have a comment, you can also call in if you have any question. I'm having some people trying to call in here, but the line is open now. You can call in if you have one or two questions you want to throw to Baba Buntu on the issue of the African Harvest Celebration Festival. You can call us, and if you have a question about Kwanzaa as well, you can call us on the number +27 7870333584 is the number to call. Your comment as well is welcome. Please send your comment through. We have few comments here. A lot of people are commenting, a lot of people are talking about it, a lot of people are getting engaged. I know it's a busy time for everyone because people are trying to tidy it up to before tomorrow. So a lot of people are very busy. I understand that. But if you are watching this program later, please share it and let it go viral. The number is available. Please call us on that number. This is the African Portal Radio TV International. Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate this. Sir, let's look at it. You say it's 19 years in South Africa that we've been celebrating the Kwanzaa. 19 years. What are the challenges you encounter, and what are the good things that have happened during the time past? We're talking about the Kwanzaa, and what is the response from people?
Yes, I think judging from the response from people, that is probably the easiest one to say it's exclusively positive. People have embraced the festival. It's become a place to meet other like-minded Africans from different parts of the continent who reside in Johannesburg. So it's really been it's a beautiful place to meet. So like I said, this year, unfortunately, we will not have a physical event, but when we do, we have a huge Kwanzaa market. And for once, you are invited into a place where you can buy all kinds of African fabrics, food items, skin products, books, jewelry, all kinds of different things. There's a food court with African food. There's a program which starts with the ceremony and then it goes into different presentations. And then it also has a children's program and a youth program and a music program and an open mic. So there's really it's taken on the nature of a festival. It's become a huge event. I think what has become challenging over the years is that the festival is growing so big that it needs more funding and it needs equipped personnel, people who have experience in putting across a big festival. And often those who sit with that experience already, they will often charge quite a lot of money for taking on such work. So we try to work with our communities, with young people, teach them, make them grow up in the ranks so that they can learn more about event management, they can learn more about festival management. And so far it's been going really well. But of course, after the 26th, we almost fall apart. We are so tired because it really demands a lot to put the festival together. And as I was saying, that it's 7 days. So we normally host the first day, and then what happens for the remaining 6 days, different community organizations will host their own events. And then we want to put that out in one synthesized program at the beginning of the festival, so that people can also start to make plans and say, oh, on the third day, maybe we should go to this place or go to this township or go to this area to be part of their event. So I think what we have learned a lot about is that I know that there is a misconception about Kwanzaa. Maybe I should address that. There's a misconception about Kwanzaa. Some people have misnomered it a Black Christmas. It's not a Black Christmas. It has nothing to do with Christmas. It's not a replacement for Christmas. It's not related to Christmas. It's not an alternative Christmas. It's nothing to do with Christmas. But it does fall on the dates that normally people would celebrate Christmas. That's the only closeness it has. But it doesn't have any closeness other than that. And some people may also have a bit of a problem when their understanding is that this was conceptualized by an African American professor in the US. Why are we bringing that to the continent? And then I go back to what I explained to you before, that for us, it's not to import something that was done in America because things in America are better than ours. That's not what it is at all. I just think it's an incredibly good idea that we as African people should have a festival where we celebrate across our languages, our ethnic groups, our nationalities. We need that. We don't have a celebration for that. So if you feel you don't really need a Kwanzaa, we cannot argue with you. Nobody's forced to celebrate Kwanzaa. But I think for a long time still, there's a huge need to celebrate Kwanzaa. There's a huge need to see Kwanzaa as, like I said before, more than just a party, more than just a cultural, lightweight celebration. It is something we need to do because of our situation right now. We are not living in the best situation, and this is one way. I'm not saying it's the only. This is one way of many that we can help to accentuate ourselves, help to start to forge our unity, start to bring our children up in a tradition where their aspiration is, I'm working for African unity, I'm working for African empowerment, I'm working for African wealth expansion, I'm working for the growth of the continent. That's what we need them to say, not to say, I want to go to New York, or I wish I could go to Paris, or I wish I could go out of Africa. No, we need them to want to be in Africa. We need to teach them that this is how we can build ourselves to the strongest and highest point.
Thank you very much, sir. Let me just take it a bit out of the content. Let's quickly divert a bit into some other things that have to do with life, because you said something just actually struck my mind, and I think it's important we talk about it. Let's look at the issue of the Africa celebration, and let's look at the issue of religion. It seems to look like the religion seems to kill some of the African idea, because if you look at it, people are so much into religion than to understand who they really are. A lot of people will say, no, Kwanzaa is actually a kind of traditional thing, and I'm not supposed to be connected to anything tradition because I'm Christian or I'm Muslim. What are the damage that this religion is done? Is done to African content, to African content and African idea. What are the damage that is doing in your own understanding, and how can we come out of this?
You know, sir, I'm very passionate about this topic, and I feel that we can no longer just be soft and cushioned on it. And I do understand that religion is very sensitive to many. It's very difficult to have discussions around it because some of us are not willing to see beyond what we have been raised in or what we think is our truth. And I don't want to come off as disrespectful at all. I do understand that people have their religious positions, people have found their groundings in various religious places, and I don't necessarily have the right to say they are wrong. But I think what concerns me about what religion has done to this continent is, number one, it made us believe, because some of us are actually thankful for the atrocities that were done to us. We think we were just running around having no clue about anything. And then these great people came. Yes, they killed us. Yes, they sent us off as slaves. Yes, they did a lot of things, but they also made us whatever religion you now subscribe to. Um, that doesn't make sense. We used to understand spirituality at the highest level, so much that actually other people in the world came to steal and loot and study our religious and spiritual scripts so that they could actually use it and just twist it around and use it for their own universal ideas. So for me, we need to be able to also step out of our religious confines and see the need for working with each other as African people. I like to say this, Brother Olushan. My first question to you, when you say that you are whatever religious affiliation you would give yourself, my first question is, what does your religion help you to do for Africa? That's what I'm interested to know. And if you can convince me that no, it makes me work very hard, it makes me build up the economy, it makes me really work for the culture to be strong, it makes history. We are banning Western information, we are stopping these westernized schools, we are stopping this Muslim schools, we are stopping this. Now, if you can tell me that that's what's going to happen, then I don't have a problem. But when you have when your main argument is that no, we need Western schools, we need to learn about Europe, we need Arab schools because we need to learn about Arabs because Arabs are better than us, Westerners are better than us, Europeans are better than us. Nonsense! I'm so tired of this. I'm sick and tired of it, and we need to be able to talk about that. We cannot just say people came here to save us. No, people actually came to kill us. They came to kill us, to murder us, to make sure we were not humans anymore, to take our shrines, to take our spiritual scripts, stamp on them, demonize them, destroy them, and make us hate them. Now, who does that to other people? Are we going to go to Vietnam and make sure everybody in Vietnam do not believe in what they used to believe in? We're not going to do that, whether we understand their belief or not. That's for them to believe in. Why would people come and say you cannot believe in what you are believing in? We are going to decide that you're going to believe in something else. Because of what? And I know this is a hard nut to crack for all of us because we have been for generations, we have grown into these religious sects and places and churches and synagogues and mosques. I know it's very difficult to just say we should disband and everything quickly. And maybe that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, can we at least have a critical conversation about what westernization, Arabization, and culture, because this is very important to understand. Even Christianity, the way we have been introduced to it, is a cultural script. It's not a universal script. It comes with a white Jesus. It comes with white angels. It comes with notions of snow, as you know, within the Christian scripts, there's mention of snow. We don't know snow. Very few in Africa know snow. So it has nothing to do with us. What I'm trying to say is that within what we now see, no, this is universal. This is for everybody. It's not. It's not for everybody. At least the way the story is told, the way it's accentuated, the way it's being used, it never has Africa at the center. And I think this is one thing we now need to wake up and understand, that the idea of most or many people outside of us is to capture us, is to make sure we become loyal to them, that we follow what they want us to do, that we do what benefits them. We need to stop this because we don't have the right to do this. We come from the origin. We are the first people on this planet. We were carefully created to be the guides of humanity. Right now, we are the servants of humanity, hardly even servants. We don't have the right to buy into everyone else's script and just walk after everyone else and do what they tell us to do. No, if anyone should be given the guidelines, we are actually the continent that should be given the guidelines to the world. So we have a job to do, to remember ourselves, to build ourselves up, to become united, to look after our economy and our power and our education and our science and our greatness. And then we need to, so when we have started, when we have been able to teach our own and found a certain strength of power within ourselves as Africans, we will then teach the world. We will then teach others who are interested. But right now we need to begin with ourselves.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, sir. I like the way you explain it. But let us have this before we call it a day. What is the solution? What do we need to do to bring back the African way of life into our daily life and into our education system? What do we need to do to bring that back?
You know, I think the answer to that question is a very good question, but the answer to the question is a bit contextual. So depending on where you live and depending on what you have access to, the answer might differ slightly. If you have access to African books, you start there. If you have access to African elders, if you are close to a village, if you are in the village, sit down with elders. Remember your history. Trace your family history tree. It's so important. You need to know where you're coming from. So start with what is available to you, and then make a decision that I'm gonna live my life to the core in an African way. And I may not know what is African always, because many of us are raised, even within Africa, we are raised in quite Western ways. Some of us, we have access to mostly Western values and systems. So again, it differs a little bit from the place you are in and who and what you have access to. But we need to make a decision that I'm going to be critically engaging with. Why do I think the way I think? Why do I think it's okay? For instance, I mean, I'm going to mention something very maybe people don't think about this. But for instance, why are we having white wedding? Why are we having brides dressed as Victorian women in 1800s United Kingdom? How does that make any sense? That's the most silly things I could ever think of. How sad is it that you say this is the most beautiful day of my life, and you're gonna look like somebody who lived 500 years in UK? Like, that doesn't make sense. Why are we not bringing in our marriage rituals? Why are we not? And I'm not saying we are not, because as you know, many of us are still observing the rituals of our continent. But I think we need to do a much better job, and maybe this is my parting shot. We need to do a much better job in inspiring our young people, because, Brother Ulushan, some of our young people are not inspired about Africa right now. They're not inspired. They want something different. They want something new. They want something fresh, but they don't see it in Africa. And that means that people like you and me, who think we know something about Africa that has value, we think that Africa is more than what meets the eye, we need to work day and night. If we lose the youth, we have lost generations, and we will become not even the same as now. We will become even worse. I don't want us to become worse.
Thank you very much, sir. It's a beautiful time, and I love the way you respond to all those questions. Let's call it a day. Let's just do a wrap up before we round up for the show. I thank you very much for coming out to be part of this show. You've talked about the where you're coming from, your background, and how you grew up, and as well you mentioned about the importance of us stepping out of our boundaries sometimes, or our comfort zone, because you actually realize who you are when you step into some part of Europe, and that is when you see how people differently. As well, we talk about Kwanzaa as well, and you tell us about what Kwanzaa stands for. Is like Camp Festival and other festival in Africa, and the reason why is celebrated in during the Christmas time is because it's happened during probably the end or beginning of the harvest, and that is why it's celebrated at that time. As well as it has nothing to do with Christmas, because some people have this narrative of calling it Christmas, Black Christmas or stuff like that. You say you have nothing to do. Also, you talk about how we can sustain and maintain our language and our culture, and how we can introduce the African ideology into the incoming generation. That is just a few wrap up that we pick up from the conversation so far. For those of you that would like to know more, please feel free to call Baba Buntu. Baba Buntu, this is the time that we need to put you on the spotlight for you to put your contact details out for people to get connected to. A lot of people would like to know more about you. A lot of people would like to you. Let me use this time to release the floor for you to give them the full details where you are, how they can get in touch with you. But before that, let me quickly ask you this question, sir. Where do you see Kwanzaa in the next years?
You know, what is really beautiful and what I didn't mention before is that me and my wife, we have been at the head of the Kwanzaa planning for many, many years now. And now we are taking a step back, and it's the young people that are taking over. Which also means that I'm not sure exactly where Kwanzaa is going. And I like that, because I think with our leadership sometimes we need to learn to let go before we are too old. We need to learn to let go while we can still give some guidance and some insights to the next generation. We mustn't just continue until we drop. And so what I'm saying is that we are giving young people very free reins to interpret what they think it should become, how it should be celebrated. And right now, I don't even have a particular vision in how it in what that looks like. But what I do know is that I believe very strongly that Kwanzaa is going to continue to be that place where you get reminded about the work that we need to do as African people, the importance of our language, the importance of our culture, the importance of our political consciousness, the importance of us understanding what white supremacy keeps doing to us, and work against us and work against that in also building and rising Africa. So I strongly believe in that scenario as a future. In terms of the contacts, I will give you our WhatsApp line, which is +27 74 490 6012. That's +27 74 490 6012. I can also be found on most social media channel as Dr. Baba Buntu. And if people want to write me, and a lot of people write me very personal questions and things they go through, and I'm very happy to answer them in time. They can also use my email, bababuntu, BABABUNTU, @gmail.com. Thank you so much for your time and for inviting me to this show. It's been a very, very humbling
Thank
hour.
you
Thank
very
you
much.
so
It is my great pleasure having you on board. I really, really, really thank you for coming out. But before I let you go, let me quote you from one of the things that you say at the beginning of this program when you talk about the ideology that was actually enforced on all, that somebody must be on the top and somebody must be the follower. That someone must lead, someone must follow. What we need to do now that this system is already in place? There is nothing we can do about it. Are you saying that we all should be equal? I mean, so that there's no leader, there's no followers. Is that what you are saying? Or should we say that we need to have an Africa where we love ourselves? Then we can think about ourselves, because if we love ourselves, somebody is not going to steal the money that belongs to every other person and put it in his own closet, or go and dig a grave and plant it there. What are you saying?
Yes. No, thank you. It's a very good clarification opportunity. Thank you so much. I'm not saying that we should not have any leaders or nobody should be bestowed upon certain leadership qualities or certain expectations. But what we have now is entitlement. What we have now is a certain form of political terrorism. So because I'm Mr. So-and-so, and because I'm a doctor, and because I'm the CEO of what, and because I earn so much in a year, everybody has to bow to me, whether I'm a nice person or not. They just have to bow to me. They just have to talk to me very nicely. They have to be very humble and respectful. For what? If I'm not a person who's really demonstrating every single second of my life that I'm living for the people, I'm I'm giving people, I'm helping to empower people. I'm helping to honor people. I honor my elders. I work for the children of my community. If I don't accentuate and demonstrate that all the time, why are people adoring me? Why are people uplifting me? Why are people bowing down to me? These cultures are very destructive. And what I'm saying is that we must remember we do come from a past where many of us were singled out as leaders. So when I say, remember I said we shouldn't have one above the other. What I meant by that, we shouldn't have one that constantly looks down on and puts down and oppresses the person under just because they have a higher position. This higher position should be the servant position, if you think about what I'm saying. So if I'm the leader on this level, I should serve the people here. And you should not even come to me and say, so Buntu, what kind of leader are you? Go to the people and say, can you honestly tell me what kind of leader he is? And if you can feel they can honestly tell you that he's good, or they can honestly tell you that he's such nonsense, that's what I'm trying to talk about, that we mustn't buy into these oppressive, locked systems. Like you said, we are living with them now. I think we can do something to change them, Olushan. Otherwise, where are we going? What is this going to be if we're going to have to live with these systems forever and ever? Let's not forget, Africa has been through tremendous changes for many, many, many years. I believe firmly that if we have a collective consciousness and will, we can change around so many things. But we need to have the will, and we need to be willing to work for it.
Thank you very, very much. That will be the end to this conversation this hour. Thank you to those of you that you are joining us. Thank you very, very much. It is a great pleasure to have on board, Baba. Thank you so much for coming now to be part of this show. A lot of people are connecting to us, and a lot of people are actually giving kudos to you. A lot of people are sending messages through, and some people are trying to call. I was unable to pick some call because I was concentrating talking. Thank you very much for coming out to be part of this show, and to everyone listening to us, thank you very, very much. It will be very unfair for me to end this show without taking you back to the roots, without taking you back to where your spirit belongs, without taking you back to your forefathers, and without letting you realize who you are originally. It's unfortunate for me that I'm doing this program in English, but I'm going to switch off of the English. I'm going to round up this program in Yoruba. A lot of people listening to me, you are going to pardon me for this, because for the last 1 hour I've been speaking the foreign language that is not supposed to be so. But we'll talk about that in times to come. Let's see, the African Portal Radio. Iléeṣẹ́ rédíò fún ìgbàlódé èdè àṣà àti ìṣe ilẹ̀ adúláwọ̀ wà láwọ̀ kí ló mọ̀ ọlọ́run ọba ló gbọ́ àlẹ́ ọba gbọ́ àgbà ńlá yọba tó lọ́jọ́ ọba tó ní ìgbọ̀ba tó lo gbogbo nínú gbogbo òun náà ló gbọ́ àkàlẹ̀ òun láláṣìírí ọjọ́ aláṣìírí ìgbà òun lọ́ba ńlá ayé adúpẹ́ pé òkú lọ́wọ́ gbẹ̀yìn tẹ́ bá wo ètò yìí adúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ bá Buntu tí wọ́n wọlé sójú òpó ètò ìbájọ́ òní báwọ̀ ojú òní tì wá lágbára Èdùmàrè àjọṣe wa kò ní dojúrú lágbára Èdùmàrè nínú láàmà fi àdágbà tètò ìrọ̀sùn orúkọ tèmi yípadà orúkọ tèmi náà ni olùdarí olùsànmọ olùṣàgbà Samuel Olùṣègùn olùsẹmí lọ pápádá mọtò fọmọkùnrin bọlẹbọlẹ ọmọ sísìn sọhún kárìbì kọlé sí ọmọ ní ọjọ́ kẹfà tí ń ṣerúkú lẹlẹtòjọ kùrì tiẹ̀ jẹ láti lè yá mi lókè nípa bí ẹkùn bàbá mi ò sì nílò àjàsán tí bá ń bẹ lé àdúgbò ẹran fọjẹ ọmọ orí mo ló sì lèmi ọmọ ají fọrẹsì tẹjẹ ẹ gbàgbọ́ wá sójú òpó ètò ọmọ Yorùbá pọ́nmi náà ni àwọn náà ojú òní ti wá ìbàjẹ́ òní bá wa ọdún ayọ̀ láṣẹ lẹ́yìn náà la máa fi àdágbètò akínwó yìí kú ọdún wẹ́n tẹ́ bá wa ṣe lọ́dún 2020 adúpẹ́ pé ọ̀kan lọ́wọ́ yín. To those of you that follow us in 2020, thank you very, very much. Òní ti wá lágbára Èdùmàrè ìbàjẹ́ òní bá wa. Ẹ máa gbọ́ kẹsì máa wò lọ́dún tí ń bọ̀ ìyanu ó ṣe á wà lọ́nà àrà lọ́nà àtọ̀ ní wá sójú òpó ètò lọ́dún tí ń bọ̀ lágbára Èdùmàrè. Ojú kì í tọ́jọ́ ojú òní ti wá ìbàjẹ́ òní bá wa kánére dídé kánére ráyọ̀ á máa fi yí dágbére ojú òní ti wá ó dijọ́ mi ó dọjọ́ rè ẹ fọ́rọ̀ yìí máa jẹ̀gbádùn títí àfọ̀pàdé lọ́jọ́ mi ọjọ́ rè ó dàbọ̀. Thank you very much, everyone. This is a wrap up. Just go to that. Just let all the people listening to us in Yoruba land to know that I'm a Yoruba and I'm proud to be, and I promote African culture and African ideology. So thank you very much, everyone joining us. This is the end to this broadcast. My name remains Dare Oluson. Please, if you want to speak to us, you want to sponsor what we are doing, call me on +2 78-703-3584 is the number to call. Thank you and God bless you. Have a beautiful celebration. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in advance. This is the African Radio TV. Join us by the grace of God on Saturday for another good time as we'll be celebrating birthdays. Double Chief Akinwule, happy birthday to you. Today as well is one of our very own Ayaba Joke Ade. Happy birthday to you. God bless you. Bye for now.
Let's split the network together, by the block, clean the streets, collectively connected like the constellations. Plant a seed, watch it grow, reap what you sow. Black dollars on black business, your black descendants, they hustle for your black children, a black trillion. That's how much black spending. Ujamaa, economics is how blacks will win, Lord willing. On the 5th day of Kwanzaa with my family.